From the very first day I met my girlfriend's best friend, I felt something, not the good kind of something. It wasn't that she was openly rude. She didn't roll her eyes or give me dirty looks the way you might expect in some dramatic movie scene. No, her style was subtler, like she had a knife hidden under the table, but wanted you to see just the tip of the blade. She walked in that day with a kind of confidence that made you instantly aware of yourself. Her hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. Her nails were done in a glassy red, the kind that said, "I have time and money to keep this up." And her perfume, it lingered in the air a little too long, almost like she wanted to claim the space as hers. When my girlfriend introduced us, I smiled, offered my hand, and said, "Hey, nice to meet you." She gave me one of those quick up and down looks before shaking my hand. Her smile was polite, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," she said, "so you're the boyfriend?" That was it, just 5 words. But the way she said them, like she'd already decided what she thought about me, put me on edge. Still, I told myself I was overthinking it. Some people are just a little reserved when meeting someone new. We all sat down in my girlfriend's living room, and that's when the joke started. First, she glanced at my phone when I set it on the coffee table. "Wow," she said with a laugh, "is that a case for an antique?" I chuckled awkwardly. "It's just a couple years old." "Couple of years? Sweetie, that's practically vintage in phone years." My girlfriend laughed, probably thinking her friend was just teasing. I forced a smile. "No big deal, right?" Then, later, when I offered to drive us to a coffee shop, she walked around my car, inspecting it like she was about to buy it from a used lot. "This car looks like it was built before Wi-Fi existed," she said with that same smile. I laughed it off. "Hey, it gets me from A to B." "Sure," she replied, "as long as B isn't too far from it." I told myself to let it go. She didn't know me. She didn't know that I was a second-year college student working part-time at a campus bookstore, just to cover rent, textbooks, and groceries. She didn't know that my parents weren't sending me money every month, or that every big purchase meant I had to carefully plan my budget. And honestly, I didn't expect her to know all that, but there was something about the way she delivered those comments. It wasn't just playful teasing. It was like she wanted me to feel less than. Over the next few weeks, her visits became more frequent. Every time she came around, there'd be another little jab. Never too big, never loud enough for anyone else to call out, but always enough for me to feel that sting. One day, I was helping my girlfriend move some boxes in her apartment when her friend came over. I was sweaty, in an old t-shirt and shorts, just trying to get things done. Her friend looked me up and down and said, "Wow, someone's not afraid to dress casual." I laughed again because what else was I supposed to do? Start an argument? Tell her off? No, I wasn't going to create tension between my girlfriend and her best friend. I figured if I just ignored it, it would stop. But it didn't. The thing about people like her is they test boundaries. If you let the small things slide, they start to push further. And she was definitely pushing. I remember one specific night that stuck with me. My girlfriend had invited a few friends over for a game night, and her best friend showed up wearing this expensive-looking designer sweater, the kind you just know cost more than my entire outfit combined. We were all sitting around the table, laughing and eating snacks, when she turned to me and said, "So, do you splurge on anything? Or are you just naturally frugal?" The whole room went quiet for a second. I said, "I guess I just try to spend wisely. College isn't cheap." She tilted her head and smiled like she'd just proven a point. "Right, so frugal." Everyone else moved on. But I sat there thinking about it. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was asking because she wanted to label me, to put me in a box where she could decide my worth based on how much money I had in my bank account. That was the moment I realized this wasn't harmless teasing. She didn't respect me. And the reason? Simple. I wasn't playing the same financial game she was. For context, My girlfriend had told me before that her best friend came from a comfortable family, not filthy rich level. But her parents were paying her rent, tuition, and giving her spending money. She worked part-time, but more for fun than necessity. If she wanted something, she could just buy it without worrying about whether it would leave her shirt on bills. I didn't hold that against her, honestly. If I'd had that kind of support, maybe I'd be the same way. But the difference was she saw my situation not as different, but as less. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was already adjusting my behavior when she was around. I'd hesitate before mentioning where I shopped. Because I didn't want to hear a snide comment about bargain hunting, I'd think twice before offering to drive. Because I didn't want her walking circles around my car again. It wasn't a friendship. It was a slow erosion of respect. Still, I didn't want to start drama. This was my girlfriend's best friend, someone she clearly valued. The last thing I wanted was to make my girlfriend feel like she had to choose between us. So I bit my tongue. I told myself, it's not worth it. Just let her comments roll off your back. But deep down, something had shifted. I started paying closer attention. I noticed how her jokes were never about herself. I noticed how she always found a way to position herself as the one with the upper hand, whether it was about fashion, money, or lifestyle. And I noticed something else too. There was always a price when she was around. At first, it was just little things, like ordering the most expensive drink at the coffee shop when it was my turn to pay. Then, the forgetting her wallet routine started, and I could feel the dynamic slowly changing, like we were moving towards something bigger, something that would finally cross the line. I didn't know it yet, but the real test was coming, and it was going to involve more than just a few cheap shots about my phone or my car. It was going to involve real money, and that's where everything would shift from annoying to personal. It started so innocently that I didn't even realize I was walking into a trap. One chilly Friday evening, my girlfriend, her best friend, and I decided to head to this little cafe near campus. It was one of those cozy spots with warm lighting, mismatched chairs, and the smell of freshly ground coffee beans in the air. The kind of place where you could sit for hours talking and forget the rest of the world existed. We stood in line, chatting about our weeks, when the barista called us forward without thinking twice. I stepped up and said, "Greater than don't worry, I've got this one." My girlfriend smiled and thanked me. Her best friend gave me a surprised look, then one of those slow, approving smiles, as if I'd just passed some invisible test. It was only 3 drinks, nothing fancy, maybe $12 total. I didn't think twice about it. I like doing small, thoughtful things for the people I care about. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just figured it was a nice gesture. That was my first mistake. A week later, the 3 of us were hanging out again, and we decided to grab coffee before a study session. This time, I noticed something strange. We got to the counter, and my girlfriend started ordering. Her best friend just stood there, scrolling on her phone. When the barista looked at her for her order, she smiled and said, "Oh, I'll have her caramel latte, oat milk, extra shot." The drink was nearly $7. Still holding her phone, she turned her head slightly toward me, but not to speak to me directly. Instead, she gave my girlfriend this little side nudge with her elbow, the same kind people give when they share a private joke. I didn't get it at first. Then my girlfriend glanced at me and said, "Can you add hers too?" I hesitated for just a second, then said, "Sure," and pulled out my card. That's when I started to wonder if maybe that first time wasn't just a nice surprise to her. Maybe it had set an expectation. Over the next few weeks, it became a pattern. We'd go somewhere, coffee shop, smoothie bar, even the little taco stand down the street, and somehow she'd always forget her wallet. Sometimes she'd dig into her purse dramatically, saying, "Oh no, I must have left it in my other bag." Other times, she didn't even bother pretending. She'd just stand there, waiting for me to pay. like it was the most natural thing in the world. And when I did, she'd give me that same smile, not a warm, appreciative smile, but the kind that said, "Of course you did." At first, I told myself, "It's fine. It's just a coffee here and there. No big deal." But here's the thing, it's never just coffee. It's the principle. The real slap in the face came one night when my girlfriend and I were talking in her apartment. We were just relaxing after dinner when she casually said, "Greater than no. By the way, my friend's been saying you're kind of cheap." I froze. "What?" "She told me you didn't want to split the cost for that weekend trip we planned. And she said it's because you're always being careful with money. She called you cheap." But like, jokingly, I put my fork down. Hold on. She's calling me cheap because I didn't want to pay for a trip I wasn't even going on. Well, my girlfriend shrugged. "I think she just meant." No, I know exactly what she meant. I cut in. It hit me like a punch in the gut. I'd been paying for her coffee, snacks, and little things here and there without complaining, and she had the nerve to call me cheap. Not careful, not responsible, cheap. The irony, that trip they went on. My girlfriend later told me she ended up paying for her friend's entire share because the friend didn't have enough saved. This was the same girl who, just weeks earlier, had bragged about buying a $200 Sarah haul at the mall. And then she posted on Instagram about her brand new, top shelf makeup from Sephora. But when it came to chipping in for a weekend trip, suddenly she was broke. And apparently, I was the one with the problem. After that, I started to replay all the little moments in my head, like the time we stopped at a bakery and she ordered 2 pastries and a coffee without even glancing at the menu prices. I paid, and she didn't even say thank you, just walked out the door scrolling through her phone. Or the time we went for bubble tea, and she ordered the most expensive size with extra toppings. Turned to my girlfriend and said, "It's okay, right? He's got it." She didn't even ask me. She just assumed. And here's the thing, coffee, snacks, little treats, they add up fast when you're a broke college student. That money could have gone to my groceries for the week, or my bus pass, or my electricity bill. But instead, it was going to someone who clearly didn't appreciate it and who, behind my back, thought I wasn't generous enough. That night, lying in bed, I decided something. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to blow up at her or start some dramatic fight that would put my girlfriend in the middle. But I was done being her walking ATM. From now on, if she forgot her wallet, I'd smile politely and say, "Greater than no worries. You can grab it next time." And then I only order for myself. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about respect. And the truth was, she'd last mine. I didn't know it then. But that small, quiet decision would change everything. Because people like her, they're not used to hearing the word no. And once you draw that line, they notice. She'd notice. And she wasn't going to like it one bit. It was a Thursday night. Just an ordinary evening. My girlfriend and I were sitting in her apartment, eating leftover pizza and half watching a sitcom. I was relaxed, tired from classes, and my part-time shift at the bookstore. Nothing about that night hinted that I was about to hear something that would change the way I looked at her best friend forever. Halfway through an episode, my girlfriend muted the TV and said, "Hey, there's something I should probably tell you." The tone in her voice made me look up instantly. "What's up?" I asked. She hesitated. "So, my friend's been saying you're kind of cheap." For a second, I just stared at her. "Cheap?" Yeah. "But like," she says it jokingly. My girlfriend added quickly, as if softening the blow would make it hurt less. I leaned back, trying to process it. Why would she say that? Well, she tucked her hair behind her ear. "She was talking about that weekend trip we planned, and she told me you didn't want to split the cost. She thought it was, I don't know, stingy." I let out a short laugh, one of those I can't believe this laughs. Wait, hold on. She's calling me cheap because I didn't want to pay for a trip I wasn't even going on. Asterisk, yeah. I told her you're busy and that you have expenses. But she said, asterisk, unbelievable, I cut in. I'm working my butt off to pay my rent, tuition, groceries, and I'm supposed to just drop $300 on a trip I wasn't invited to? Asterisk, it wasn't like that, my girlfriend tried to say, but I could tell she didn't fully believe it herself. Asterisk, here's the thing, $300 might not sound like much to some people, but for me, at that point in my life, $300 was a massive chunk of my monthly budget. It wasn't about whether I wanted to go, it was about whether I could afford to. And the answer was simple, I couldn't. Asterisk, but to her best friend, my careful spending wasn't responsible. It was cheap. She didn't see the hours I worked between classes. She didn't see the budgeting app on my phone, where I track every expense down to the last penny. She just saw someone who didn't throw money around the way she did, and she decided that was a flaw. Asterisk, and then the part that really got under my skin, my girlfriend let slip that on that same $300 trip, her best friend didn't pay for anything. Asterisk, apparently, she told my girlfriend at the last minute, asterisk greater than, hey, I'm a little short right now. Can you cover me? I'll pay you back. Asterisk, of course, she never did. Asterisk, so the same person who called me cheap because I didn't want to pay for a trip I wasn't attending couldn't even pay for her own spot on that very trip. Asterisk, it was almost comical when I thought about it. Asterisk, this was the same friend who, just a month earlier, had been bragging about dropping to $100 at Zara in one afternoon. She'd shown off her new outfits in the mirror, twirling around like she was on a runway, talking about how quality pieces were worth the price. Asterisk, and the makeup, don't even get me started. I'd seen the Instagram stories designer foundation, eyeshadow palettes that cost as much as my electricity bill, and lipsticks from brands I couldn't even pronounce. Asterisk, but when it came to splitting the cost of a weekend getaway, suddenly, she was sure on cash. Asterisk, the hypocrisy made my blood boil. Asterisk, I remember asking my girlfriend, asterisk greater than, doesn't that bother you? She didn't pay for anything. Asterisk, my girlfriend sighed. I mean, yeah, but she's my friend. I didn't want to make it awkward. Asterisk, that's the problem, I said. She knows you won't call her out, so she takes advantage. And now she's running around calling me cheap on top of it. Unbelievable. Asterisk, it wasn't just about me anymore. I realized she was doing the same thing to my girlfriend, just in a different way, using her generosity, testing her limits. And if she could get away with it, she would. Asterisk, that night, I lay in bed replaying every interaction I'd had with her. Asterisk, the comments about my car, my phone, my clothes, they all had the same undertone. I have more, so I'm better. Asterisk, and now I realized the coffee forgetfulness and the silent expectation that I'd cover her weren't accidents. They were habits. Asterisk, she'd found a way to make me feel like I wasn't good enough financially, while at the same time benefiting from the very money she looked down on. Asterisk, that's when I felt the anger give way to something else, clarity. Asterisk, I didn't need to confront her in some big dramatic scene. I didn't need to yell or insult her or try to make her see my point of view. Asterisk, because people like that, they don't change when you talk to them. They change maybe when they lose access to what they're taking from you. Asterisk, and I was about to close that door for good. Asterisk, the next time I saw her, I already knew exactly how I'd handle things. Asterisk, the opportunity came sooner than I expected. A few days later, the three of us were heading to a campus cafe. We got to the counter, and she ordered her usual elaborate latte. Then she stood there, looking at me, waiting. Asterisk, I smiled politely and said, asterisk greater than, oh, are we splitting today? Asterisk, she blinked. Oh, I don't have my wallet. Asterisk, no problem, I said, stepping aside. You can grab it next time. Asterisk, And then I ordered my drink. Asterisk the look on her face was priceless confusion mixed with the faintest trace of embarrassment. For the first time since I'd known her, she pulled out her phone and actually paid using a mobile wallet app. Asterisk, it was a small victory. But it felt like reclaiming something she'd quietly been taking from me for months. Asterisk that night. I thought, back to the broke comment. Asterisk, I realized something important. It didn't matter what she thought about me. Asterisk, because in her world, generous meant willing to be used, and I wasn't signing up for that rule anymore. Asterisk from here on out. My wallet was close to her. Asterisk, she could call me cheap. She could roll her eyes. She could nudge my girlfriend and try to make it an inside joke. Asterisk, but I wasn't laughing anymore. I'll admit it was petty. Not the kind of petty where you slash someone's tires or post cryptic messages on social media. This was quiet, strategic petty. The kind where you smile on the outside, but build an iron wall around your boundaries on the inside. From that day forward, I made a promise to myself. She would never get another cent out of me. No coffee. No snacks. No I'll pay you back later nonsense. If she wanted something, she was going to have to pay for it herself, just like everyone else in the real world. To make sure I stuck to my plan, I downloaded a money tracking app called Fizz. Every dollar I spent went into that app, right down to the gum I bought at the gas station. That way, there was no, oh, didn't I already pay you back for that? Or I thought you said it was on you. Nope, not anymore. This wasn't about being stingy, it was about taking control. The first real test came the following week. We were all walking toward our favorite campus cafe. It was one of those crisp afternoons where the air smells like roasted coffee beans before you even get through the door. The line was long, but the mood was light. As we stepped up to order, I already knew what was about to happen. She leaned over the counter and gave her usual complicated order: extra shots, oat milk, some syrup I'd never heard of. The total was almost $8. Then she reached into her purse and froze. Oh no, she said, patting round like she'd lost something. I must have left my wallet at home. Old me would have said, no worries, I got you. But new me smiled and said, greater than a, no problem, you can grab it next time. Then I stepped forward, ordered my drink, and paid for it without even looking at her. She blinked, caught off guard. Wait, you're not. I just smelled. Nope. Just getting mine today. There was a pause. Then, without another word, she fished out her phone and paid with a mobile wallet app. So much for forgetting her wallet. That was the moment I knew my plan was working. It wasn't about embarrassing her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I simply refused to be her backup bank account. And here's the interesting thing. At first, she seemed shocked. The second time it happened, she seemed annoyed. By the third time, she didn't even try. It was like cutting off a water supply. When she realized the tap was dry, she stopped coming to it. Of course, there were little passive-aggressive moments, like the time we were all at the movies and she made a point of saying, I'm so glad I bought my ticket ahead of time. Some people just expect others to cover them. I smiled and sipped my soda. Yeah, good thing everyone's paying for themselves today. Or the time at a food truck when she muttered under her breath to my girlfriend, guess chivalry really is dead. I looked right at her and said, chivalry's alive, freeloading isn't. My girlfriend choked on her drink, trying not to laugh. The beauty of my petty plan was that it was completely drama-free on the surface. No fights, no yelling, just consistent, polite refusal. If she forgot her wallet, I smiled. If she didn't have enough, I smiled. If she hinted that I should cover her, I smiled. And every time, I gave the same calm answer. You can grab it next time. The thing about people like her is they're not used to being told no. At first, it rattled her. Then it frustrated her, and eventually, she just avoided the situation altogether. My girlfriend noticed the change to one night. She leaned over while we were studying and said, it's so weird seeing her actually pay for her own stuff now. I grinned, weird or nice. She laughed. Both. I didn't tell her the full truth that this wasn't some happy accident. It was a calculated shift. Because honestly, it wasn't about winning against her best friend. It was about reclaiming the control I'd given away without realizing it. There was one last test that cemented my decision forever. We were grabbing lunch on campus. My girlfriend ordered first. Then her best friend. When it was her turn to pay, she turned to me and said with this fake sweet tone, "Greater than you're not gonna let me starve, are you?" I raised an eyebrow. "You're not starving. You're just paying for your own lunch." She laughed like I'd made a joke. But when I didn't move, she realized I meant it, slowly. She pulled out her card and paid Dot, and that was it, the end of the freeloading era. Looking back, I realized the plan wasn't really petty, it was self-respect disguised as pettiness. Because here's the truth, people can only take advantage of you if you give them the opportunity, and once you close that door, they either adapt or they disappear. Dot in her case, she adapted, begrudgingly. But she never tried to get me to pay for her again. And honestly, that quiet victory was worth more than all the coffees I'd ever bought. It was a random Tuesday night, and we were walking back from the grocery store, arms full of bags. Out of nowhere, she said, "It's so weird seeing her actually pay for her own things now." I couldn't help but smirk. "Yeah, it's refreshing, isn't it?" She laughed. "Honestly, yeah. I didn't realize how often she used to forget her wallet until she stopped doing it." That was the moment I realized I'd won without ever throwing a punch, raising my voice, or getting into a screaming match. Here's the thing, when someone has been taking advantage of you for a while, it's tempting to go for a big confrontation, to lay it all out, list every time they've wronged you, and demand an apology. But the truth, that rarely works. People like her don't suddenly change because you called them out. They just get defensive, twist the story, and make you look like the problem. So instead, I took a quieter approach. I didn't yell at her. I didn't start drama. I didn't try to turn my girlfriend against her. I simply removed her access to the parts of me she was taking advantage of. Think about it like this. If you leave your front door wide open every day, don't be surprised if someone walks in and eats your food. But if you lock the door, they can't get in without asking. That's all I did. I locked the door. I stopped being the shore, I'll cover it guy. I stopped being the safety net. I stopped letting her little forgetful act slide. And once the free ride ended, she had no choice but to adjust. What surprised me most wasn't her change, it was mine. Before all this, I thought saying no would make me look cheap, unkind, maybe even insecure. But the opposite happened. The first time I told her, "You can grab it next time," I felt this weird rush of relief, like I was finally doing something my past self had been too polite to do. And every time I held that boundary, it got easier. Saying no stopped feeling like an attack. It started feeling like self-respect. One Saturday, a couple months after I started my no freebies policy, the three of us were grabbing lunch again. She paid for her meal without hesitation. No size, no fake surprise. But here's the twist, she actually seemed lighter. I don't know if she even realized it. But by taking away that weird unspoken expectation, I might have done her a favor too. Now she didn't have to play the role of the helpless friend who couldn't afford anything. She could just be. We didn't suddenly become close. We weren't swapping life advice or hanging out one-on-one. But there was less tension. No awkward glances when the bill came. No loaded pauses. It was transactional in the best possible way. She ordered, she paid, and life moved on. And my relationship with my girlfriend, stronger than ever. We never had to argue about her friend taking advantage of me. She saw the shift. She saw I handled it calmly. And she respected that. In fact, one night she admitted, greater than honestly, "I'm kinda proud of you. You didn't let her walk all over you. But you also didn't make it a big fight." That meant a lot. Because the truth is, I wasn't just doing this for me. I was setting a tone for how I expect to be treated, not just by her friend, but by anyone. Because here's the reality. You don't always need to fight to protect yourself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a clever comeback or a public takedown. It's boundaries. Quiet, consistent boundaries that make it crystal clear. This is what I allow. This is what I don't. Single quota. No fireworks. No theatrics. Just action. Nowadays, I focus my time, energy, and money on the people who actually value me. If a friend treats me with generosity, I happily return it. If they're struggling, but honest about it, I'll help if I can. But if someone treats my kindness like an ATM they never have to pay back, that card is getting declined permanently. And as for my girlfriend's best friend, she can pay her own way. Just like the rest of us, the real win isn't that she stopped taking advantage, it's that I stopped letting her. Because once you realize you have control over who gets access to your time, money, and energy, it changes everything. You stop trying to please everyone, and you start protecting yourself. And that's the kind of revenge that doesn't just win the battle, it wins the war.